We have 3 presentations today. Terry Moore will do his blog on T-TRAK. And after that, we'll have another T-TRAK presentation. This is by Stuart Denniston, who builds and sells T-TRAK modules. Thank you. Having another senior moment. They happen more often. And then we're going to have Tom Fausser give us a talk on his experiences in working with model railroads in urban areas. Now, just so you know, Tom Fausser's layout is an HO layout, but it's a fantastic layout, and it's in a very tight area, but there's plenty of room to move around for 4 operators. And if you can see what he does in HO scale, and you take that same footprint in N scale, you'll be amazed at what you can do in that amount of space. So I think you will all really enjoy it, and it does apply to what we do in N scale just fine. So with that, let me first tell you, next month's meeting will be on May the 14th. We will have 4 presentations. N-Scale Architect is going to give a report on their structures. Terry will do his N-TRAK blog. We have 2 other new blogs that we're going to start. They won't all 3 be done every month. But Andy Zimmerman, who's just been appointed to a position on NMRA, is going to keep us informed about what's new and what's happening over at NMRA. And also, J.M. Goodori is going to talk a little bit, have a little blog on the things you can do with video. So with that as an introduction, let's get this show on the road. And Terry, if you aren't frozen to death, he showed some pictures to us the other day of his place up where he lives, and there's 4 to 5 feet of snow in his yard. And I really felt bad for him, but not that bad if he chose to live up there. Terry, take it away, my friend.
Talkin T-TRAK has returned after a 1-month holiday. This lesson was given before when trying to promote the construction of more corners and junctions. But this time, the equation is all about maximizing the use of layout table space. In the beginning, there were corner and straight modules. A single row of tables was all that was needed, and all was good. Then straight modules were added between the corners, and the required second row of tables provided more edge security space. Steve Jackson introduced his junctions, and sometimes doubles were used, widening the layout loops, but still leaving a security edge. If we're going to bring, pay for, or at least use double wide tables, we can maximize the display space by filling the space with modules. Add junctions between the end corners and add another long straight section for 3 loops. This idea is not new, as witnessed by this layout from North Texas T-TRAK in 2005. This is a rather dramatic situation of the same idea. This is Joe Ludley's Super 8. It's a great crowd pleaser that shows as spectators wait to see if the trains will crash at the crossing. The crossing has automatic train control, so they are disappointed. Notice the 62mm track pieces between the corner and junction in the foreground and at the crossing to correct for the use of the 17-inch junction entrance to the Super 8 at the top left corner. With straight modules of 12-inch depth or less, a second loop layout can be added inside an outer loop layout with double-length straight modules between the layout's end corners. If the fit is a little too tight, just add a piece of 62mm straight track, or shorter, depending on what you might need, to fit into the ends. Because If you add 2 pieces of 62 millimeter straight track in the ends, you'll be able to use 14-inch deep straight modules and still fit on a double row of tables. A pair of 62s is preferable to a 124 to minimize the unsupported length, unless you build small module of the 124. Or with the modules only 12 inches deep or less, the 62 millimeter pieces in the ends will leave a gap for wiring accessibility if desired. The new large radius 19-inch corners require the use of a double wide row of tables. Add a single straight module between the corners. With 12-inch deep or narrower straight modules, an inner loop layout is possible. Adding short straight, excuse me, adding short straight track pieces to the end singles will allow 14-inch deep straights. The use of 180-degree end cap corners with the spacer straights in the outer loop layout and 12-inch or narrower straight modules would allow the tables to be spread apart to provide a deeper security edge around the layout. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Terry. I guess you guys got all that, got it figured out. Into our second presentation of the day. Stuart, will you introduce yourself and tell us what you got available, please?
Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about the stuff that I'm doing. All right, can everyone see that?
You got it.
Perfect. So again, basically, I've been doing N-TRAK for about 45 years at this point. My first slide is tells a little bit about things that I've been doing. I started out as a 16-year-old doing NCAT modules with the live catenary. I went to the Denver show in July of 1977, and I had made an 8-foot module that had the live NCAT catenary on it. Hal Rieger was back then was the kind of keeper of the whole NCAT standard. And the interesting thing about it was that Amtrak back then was shipping modules as long as they were in a crate. They were shipping them free of charge to the national conventions. So on my next slide, I've got that's me as a 16-year-old in the picture upper left-hand corner, and I also have my N-TRAK exhibitor badge. So it was a pretty neat experience. So I've been doing it for quite a while. I'm currently the treasurer and a member of the N-Scale division of the Pensacola Model Railroad Club here in Pensacola, Florida. We are both N-TRAK and T-TRAK. The club owns and maintains 4 4-foot corners and 9 4-foot N-TRAK modules. I myself have then got 12 feet of modules, of N-TRAK modules, and we're 100% DZC on our N-TRAK. Our club owns an 8 by 12 foot trailer that we use for hauling everything around. 3 years ago, Bruce Arbo from Coastal Alabama T-TRAK joined our club and introduced us to T-TRAK N. We also have T-TRAK Z in our club. I started making modules, T-TRAK modules then, because I was really unhappy with the quality of the kits that were available. 3 main reasons. The pre-manufactured kits, you always had to do so much to them to make the tabs and slots and all of the little cutouts line up, that they were inconsistently sized, at least by my standards. I've been a cabinet maker for 40 years, and having things down to the millimeter is a very easy thing to do. And I just found that they were inconsistent. If you don't have any woodworking skills, or you're kind of challenged by gluing and screwing things together, they weren't very easily put together. So I make my T-TRAK and N-TRAK modules from 100% USA manufactured plywood and USA pine. I exclusively use a brand from a company called Columbia Forest Products, because they have this gorgeous plant in North Carolina that produces these beautiful birch-faced and poplar core plywoods. They stay straight. They're lightweight, and I like buying American rather than buying overseas stock. And the overseas stock has gotten incredibly expensive. For T-TRAK modules, I use 1/2-inch plywood for the sides and ends. The point of doing that is that it makes them a little bit beefier. Some folks that I talked to initially said, well, that's going to horribly increase the weight of them. And it actually doesn't increase the weight of them in the slightest, but by using 1/2-inch plywood for the sides instead of 1/4-inch, you get a straighter and flatter, and in my case, squarer panel that module. And I just like that. So I'm still using 1/4-inch for the decks, and I use I custom mill a 1x1 piece of pine to make the corner bolts, the corner legs, and I install the T-nuts for everything. For N-TRAK, I do build a kind of a battleship version of the N-TRAK, because I still use 1x4 pine for the sides and 1/2-inch plywood for the decks. I block the corners with 2x2 pine to make them a little bit beefier. So here's a picture of an N-TRAK, a standard 2-foot by 4-foot N-TRAK module. You can see the kind of beefy corner blocks and the 1x4 pine. I do install T-nuts for installing skyboards, and I do provide legs with leveling feet on them. They're a little bit on the expensive side, but I've made 4 of them for a club down in Plano, Texas. And it turns out that the 4 of them, each one of them was about $30 to ship from my house in Pensacola to Plano. So those folks down there were real happy with it, and they're building. They're part of the Bullet Trains USA website, and they're building a portable exhibit out of N-TRAK modules that demonstrates how high-speed rail would be used between Dallas and I think it's El Paso, but I'm not positive on that. The T-TRAK modules, I've got a picture here of my double from the top, and I do pre-drill the corners so that you can access the leg leveling bolts, which I also provide as part of the price. If you don't want the holes drilled in the top of them, just tell me that and I won't pre-drill for them. The right side picture is a view of the bottom of mine. And you'll notice on the back side, there are some cutouts for, I do a pre-machined cutout for the black 2x2 socket that the Anderson power poles go into if you use that. I also pre-drill and install T-nuts for installing a backboard. And I pre-drill and install the T-nuts for the leveling legs. I've also gotten into specialty modules. I was surprised when I started building these things that singles and doubles and triples don't sell as often as these custom things that they did. So I've done 6 of these custom balloons. I'm using a bendable MDF for the sides, and it's then again a 1/4 inch 5mm deck, and you can see again it's been pre-drilled to access the 6 different, or the 5 different leveling bolts that are in them. The right side is what I call a 4x4 junction. I've made 2 of these that have been shipped to Northern Virginia. And for that customer, I actually installed all of the track on it and provided the ZoomTRAK power couplers on it, even though most folks say don't try to power a 4-way from the 4-way, let it be powered from whatever it's connected up to. Here's my basic pricing structure, and anybody that would like a copy of this can email me. My email address is denind, so DENNIND@gmail.com. And the Denind is for Denniston Industries, which is what I kind of loosely go by. Quick context, I live in Cantonment, Florida, which is just north of Pensacola by about 8 miles. There's my email. I'm also pretty active on Facebook and a cell phone number. So does anybody have any questions?
Have you ever shipped to Canada?
I actually, Terry Moore and I had a conversation about shipping to Canada, and I did some pricing, and the shipping to Canada ends up being almost 3 times the cost of the actual module. And so it's as much as I'd like to sell and ship to Canada, quite frankly, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. The shipping ends up being exorbitant. So like I said, I'm missing out on a wonderful market, but I can't ship to Canada.
All right, we will, our normal routine is that we hold all questions till the end of all the presentations.
Okay.
Or if you want to use the chat feature, you can comment on chat. And Stuart, if you want to respond that way, we can do it, but we will go through all this at the end of the ZoomTRAK meeting. Tom Fausser, who I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is going to talk to us about his South Brooklyn Terminal Railroad. Tom, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, first I'd like to thank Bruce and Razor for getting me involved in this. As he stated, I am an HO scale modeler, but I managed to pack a lot of what I'm calling density into a relatively small space. This is not going to be brick by brick actual Brooklyn. This is proto freelance. This is my impression and version of Brooklyn. I've come at it from a long time back. This is actually going to be my second layout. I'll start with the first layout and we'll go from there. Okay, the road to Brooklyn is paved with frustration, inspiration, evolution, perspiration, and operation. Before Brooklyn, I attempted to model Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. Rookie mistake 101. Obviously, I couldn't model all of that in such a small space. I did have a fondness for the Jersey Central and the Lehigh Valley, but 2 class 1s do not fit into my space. So here's some pictures of the first layout I ever built. Part of Jersey City, working the docks. It's got that industrial feel, and that's what I was looking for and improved upon, hopefully in the second layout. Back up here. So that was an attempt at Northeast Pennsylvania with the anthracite coal breaker. Again, the dockside industries. So last run was in 2003. Begun in 2003 and ended in 2014. So it had a good run. It was a fun layout, 4 operators, but started to develop problems because, as I say, it was the first layout. My skills were not quite what they needed to be. So the easy part is taking a layout down, as we all know. It takes a long time to build one and not very long to tear one down. So lessons learned, keep it simple. I didn't need all those tortoise machines. Focus on a specific time, place, and prototype. Grandkids didn't care one bit about a continuous loop. It's your railroad. Do what you know and do what you like. Inspirations. The New York Harbor area is teeming with marine activity. Every major railroad came into Jersey and had to bring car floats across into Manhattan to get the freight into Manhattan. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 class 1 railroads with their marine departments. And that does not include the contract marine operations, which the South Brooklyn was part of. So focus. All the red little fingers jutting out, those are all marine operations. Jersey to Brooklyn to Manhattan. Some of the influences I had were the Bush Terminal, and the picture with the yard was their A yard. And during World War II, they pumped out over 2,000 cars a day. You can see all the finger piers here on the diagram, and they're huge warehouse complexes. Example of one of those warehouses, which is now part of City of Industry in New York City. And the classic New York Cross Harbor train navigating the sharp radiuses right through a building corner. So why Brooklyn? What, are you kidding me? What's not to like? Street trackage, critters, steam critters, car floats, tugboats. Street trackage, nice, straight track, cobblestone streets, asphalt streets, concrete streets, everything on top of one another, tight radiuses. Another example, starting to get that canyon effect with some of the taller warehouses and buildings. Street critters, Bush Terminal had a Ingersoll Rand, ran forever. New York Dock with the 44 tonners. J Street connecting, again, a GE Alco Ingersoll Rand combination. South Brooklyn, GE 70 tonners. I love little critters and I like tight radiuses. So these are my people. Steam critters, Brooklyn Eastern District Terminal ran steam up into the 60s. It was a rail fan mecca for the metropolitan area. Harbor marine operations, again, all the class 1 railroads and then the contract railroads all had their own tugboats, car floats, floating docks. It was a massive undertaking. Example of the J Street car float, Bush Terminal with a brace of floats. So that's the inspiration. That's where I wanted to go. Evolution, napkin doodle to finish track plan over a course of 6 years. False starts to aha moment and early influences and plans. I'm lucky enough to be involved with a group here in Tulsa that we do a weekly lunch, and we pass around track plans and kibits and criticize, and eventually you will get to a track plan that works. So here you go, N-scalers. Others have also been inspired by Brooklyn. This is Bernie Kempinski's version in the 2003 issue Model Railroad Planning. He's got the warehouses, of course, the requisite car float tugboats. Again, Lance Mindheim, he did his on his website first, and then in the 2021 issue of Model Railroader. Again, he too, it's very similar. He has the same car float. He has more warehouses. Again, that's also an N scale. Okay, Garden State Detour. I was originally thinking about doing the Hoboken Shore or the Manufacturers Railroad. That was the alternate name. They had a car float operation. They had Pierside Industries. They had a connection with the Erie, and they also ran GE 44 tonners. Got to looking at it a little closer. There was not quite enough work to keep 4 operators busy. But if you had a smaller space and you had 1 or 2 operators, I think it would make an interesting plan. The Hoboken Shore was also being developed by Riley Triggs in Austin, and he took it a lot further and came up with his Port of New York concept. Byron Henderson designed the Hoboken Shores in both N and HO. But that was the detour. The aha moment. I came across this plan in the December 2010 issue of Model Railroader. Basically, almost the same footprint as the room that I was working with. It's modified for my usage, but this was the real genesis of what became the South Brooklyn Terminal. So early days, this is how we started, doodling track plans, trying to figure out how many operators could actually work it. This was one of the earlier versions. Started to refine it. This the more detailed plan. You'll notice that the warehouses have been reversed from one side to the other. And this area above the warehouse, that's actually an aisle. So you can work that as a peninsula from both sides. The track plans were being further refined, and my track plan assistant was getting much more skilled in CAD drawing, and you can see the difference in the track plans. So pre-COVID, that plan had a lot more trackage that was changed in the, we did a regional convention recently in 2021 with North Texas. And this is the track plan that was operated at that point and is current today. Interesting alternate plan I came across was the Bush Terminal, and you can see where that big A yard is incorporated, and along with more piers than I had, more docks. So perspiration, the Indian Nations Division, we do a yearly layout, design, and operations symposium, and I needed to get back into operation as soon as possible. So to that end, Benchwork was contracted out. I already had a carpenter on site doing some remodeling at the house. He said, well, I've never done that, but it sounds like fun. The entire layout was covered in 1/4 inch cork. Track is Atlas Code 83, which pretty meaningless for you guys as far as that goes. Existing DCC system was used and Pico manual turnouts. So benchworks, legs, wall, and peninsula. All the legs were cut from plywood sheet. Let's see, around the walls, and then the central peninsula with the larger floating legs. Birch plywood decking. These pictures already have the masonite wrapped around. Court and track work being visualized, starting to lay out the track, placing industries where they may or may not fit, depending. A little further along, the industry plats. What I did is nothing new. I took the kit buildings, in this case, those are Walther's warehouses, and laid it out and then extended it. So the white paper is showing what the actual footprint would be. And then, of course, trying to figure out the track going into that. A little further along, a little more track in, starting to just put up building pictures to see what was going to work. Soda train, HO scale track lends itself to the clear caulk method of putting the track down. You put a bead of caulk, spread it out, you can put your track on it, and then the soda cans fit perfectly between the rails and act as weights. It's easy, it's fast, and you get a drink at the end of the day. So here we go. We're starting to get some shells put up. It's starting to look like a little bit of a city. And then these are the shots of the night before the first LDOP operation, which was in 17. So this is really the first test of the new lab. It had shakeout runs, but this would be the real first test. So some brief statistics: 13.8 wide by 19.3, approximately 266 square feet, HO scale. South Brooklyn, New York Harbor, 1954 to 1959 era. We already talked about the track and the turnouts. Minimum radius 16 inches. Benchwork height is at 52. Minimum aisle width 32.5 inches. Easy DCC, car cards and waybills. Requires 4 operators to run the railroad. So what's in a name? 1913, some investors got together and raised, I think $21 million or so to buy up right away to build what they were going to call the Brooklyn Marginal Railroad, which was actually the South Brooklyn Terminal. They fiddled around too long. In 1929, the stock market crash put an end to any plans of building that railroad and uniting the other harbor railroads. So, savvy investor bought up the worthless stock and rights and formed the South Brooklyn Terminal Railway, which now lives in HO scale, 1959. South Brooklyn Terminal Herald. So Houston, or as they say in New York, Houston, it's Houston. I tried to get the flavor of Brooklyn, and most everything was masonry or brick, and that required a lot of different manufacturers. Of course, Walther's being one of the mainstays for any kind of large, semi-urban buildings, but a lot of other different manufacturers. I think there was 28 different manufacturers' kits that are on the layout to achieve what we would call the density. So current operations, this is what the layout looks like now. It's gotten filled up. So here are the South Brooklyn terminal critters. You'll recognize a 44 tonner, which is the South Brooklyn Terminal Railway, and then the 70 tonners, which is the South Brooklyn Railroad. They are allied, but they are still somewhat competitive with each other. The railroad is divided into 4 operational zones or industrial zones. Zone 1 has 11 spots with 33 car capacity. You can see there's a warehouse row. So there's 5 different warehouses. There's a restaurant supply, engine servicing, freight house, T-TRAK, Gillett expediting, and Schaefer brewery. Those 2 are not in this picture. They're in a different location on the layout. So South Brooklyn's freight house, warehouse row, which is again harking back to the Bush Terminal City of Industry warehouses. Another shot of the warehouse, Sinisi's restaurant supply. All of these are modified Walters kits. They've either been extended or combined. Window treatments have been changed to make them look a little different from everybody else's Walters kit. Another shot of Sinisi's, and railroading's a thirsty job, so we have Casey's Bar and Grill. Zone 2, oh, who had that guy get in there? Zone 2 has 8 spots with a capacity of 38 cars. We have a produce area to work. Roker Engineering, Gibson Global Moving and Storage, Salomon Steam Supply, American Chicle, and Littlefield Lighting. It's a variety of industries requiring all different kinds of car movements, and different manufacturers require shipments. Roker Engineering, produce market area, Gibson Global Moving, Salomon Steam Supply. Zone 3, 7 spots, capacity of 28 cars. We have a mix of chemicals, retail coal, Sunrise Fuel, Davis Pipe, plumbing supply, Cox Carburetor, lubricants, Eller's Specialty Chemicals, Cosmic Plumbing and Annex, Latham Brothers Retail Coal, Davis Pipe and Supply, Cox Carburetor. And Zone 4 has 5 spots with a capacity of 23 cars, but it also has a car float with a capacity of 15 to 18 cars, depending on car type. Angler Millwork, Panzias Precision, Bruner Instruments, Consolidated Edison, Rose Distribution, and of course the car float. Overall shot with Con Ed Power Plant, Angler Millwork, and the car float. Rose Distribution. Looking west, Panzias, Rose, Schaefer Brewery in the background. And then southwest, looking at Atlantic Yard. All the industries go to Atlantic Yard to classify their cars and pick up any incoming cars to take back to their industrial zones. Panzias Products, Bruner Instruments, Con Ed. I have a bibliography of sources available if anybody's interested, that can be emailed to you. And the award goes to no model railroad that I know that is a full operation railroad is ever built just by one person. And luckily, like I say, we have an excellent group of operator owners up here, and everyone is willing to share. So thanks to all. See you guys on the SBT. How are we doing on time, Bruce?
We're doing great.
Okay,
About 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and run that other one then if I can.
Yeah.
So a few months back, we had we're in the process of getting a new roof on the house. And this being Oklahoma, we had a issue with a microburst that hit the house when the roof was mostly off. And we had major flooding throughout the house. And that was actually in September. And I couldn't get back to the layout until almost Thanksgiving. So I had to take everything off the layout. They covered the luckily the track was fine. They covered it with a moving blankets and then plywood above that, so it was protected. But everything had to get taken down to the garage, and this is not the density that I was hoping for. So they had to take the ceiling down. They had to take all the insulation out. We had to get all new sheetrock. And this is just in this area. The rest of the house is getting the same treatment. So all new mud, you know, the whole process, plaster dust everywhere. But we had an op session on February 3rd, 2022. So everything has been restored. All right, that's all I've got. Thanks, guys.
All right, now we're ready for questions. If you all want to shout them out, just jump right in.
My name is Richard. I wanted to say to Tom that I think it was Tom, that the original drawings that you did, I liked your colorful drawings, and you put yourself down that somebody had more technical expertise, but we do appreciate, in other words, we appreciate creativity and artisticness, and I like that. And you inspired me with some ideas for some harbor operations, because then it could go anywhere. And just thank you for the presentation. I would have loved to see more pictures as you were talking, which is fine, but all of the detail, it's an incredible amount of work. It's almost like, I wonder if you should start off showing the destruction of what happened. And because that was so powerful in what you had to redo. But that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for being here today. I had nothing to say to other people, but that's your spot right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I wanted to ask you about your warehouse row. Why did you choose to make all 5 of those things so uniform?
Because that's the way the city of Industry is. They were all identical warehouses.
But it looked like the layout, I thought you had short and long ones in the cardboard or paper. I thought they were staggered in the paper.
Right. I extended the front of the warehouse 2 window widths wider to get more length so I could get 3 cars into the siding. So that's an extended warehouse. It's not the standard warehouse size of the kit.
I believe that's the Braylick building kit, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, they've called it several things. It's a hardwood furniture, Braylick building.
Yeah, and all he did was take 2 of them and kit bash them together to make it 2 windows longer. Oh, that's all. Nothing really big. But it was fantastic. It's fantastic. Tom's work on these buildings and modules is amazing. He's quite an artist.
Tom, the industries that are there, are they all based on what is actually in Brooklyn?
No, they're not. Some of the names of the like American Chicle was actually Chiclet gum, but that was actually in Long Island City. So I've appropriated that because I wanted some more variety. There were a lot of warehouses, distributions, manufacturing in Brooklyn. None of these are what, like I say, they're not actual businesses, but they capture what could have been there, and a lot of it was there.
And how did you get the names of the industries.
Well, if some of the guys will know that that's named for friends that have helped build the layout, people that are involved in the layout design operation symposiums, layouts I've operated on and enjoyed. So a little tip of the hat to some of them. And then there are some actual names like American Chicle. I have a few are named from high school buddies of mine, you know, just whatever sounded good. I mean, the produce section, I grew up in New York with a lot of Italian Americans, so that was easy to do the produce people.
Do you know anything about the Lehigh Starrett building in Manhattan?
Yeah, that was actually involved with the Lehigh Valley. That
Did
was
that take cars into the building, or was
yeah, they did. It was, I think it was on 26th Street, and they actually had
I worked in the
elevators.
building, and that's what I wanted to know more about it. I didn't research it as much.
Yeah, they actually had elevators that would lift the cars up to the various floors.
I saw the loading docks. I couldn't believe it, and I said, "Why are they like that?
Yeah,
The cars would come up here."
right,
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Tom, can I give out your email? Because somebody was asking about getting some of the reading material.
Yeah, sure. That's
Okay,
fine.
I'll put your email in the chat window now.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, that Con Edison plant you put in there is,
Yeah.
I think you said earlier that your industries are not particularly model exactly what they are, but did that happen to be the Con Edison plant in Hudson Avenue?
No, it's actually a Baltimore prototype.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. Because my first job out of college as a mechanical engineer was working at that Con Edison
Okay.
generating plant in Brooklyn. And
Right.
during lunchtime, I would go out to the dock and watch the river traffic. But that was before I got into N scale.
Yeah. Yeah, that power plant is actually a kit from Custom Model Railroads, and it is an actual prototype is in Baltimore. But I figured it would be a good stand-in for New York.
Well, the thing that really is interesting about this is you notice that around the edges of Tom's layout, there are flats, building flats all around the edge. And some of those are actual industries that he switches. But the thing is, in N scale, with the compression you get there, you could even have those buildings full sized out in the back. And even with what he has, the reach is never more than what, 15, 18 inches to anything.
Yeah, it's 2 foot deep on the out. Well, that long wall, it's 2 foot, and then the two end walls, it's about, not quite 30, maybe 28. And then the peninsulas, you work both sides, so that's
Right.
easy enough.
So there's a lot of opportunity there in that space using the same footprint, doing it in N scale. It's just mind-boggling what you could do with all that. So there were some questions back on Stuart's presentation. There are notes on the chats. Did everyone get the answers they were looking for?
Razor, I'm going to launch the poll now, so I'm just going to ask everybody to go ahead and fill it out and remind them that yes, we do look at the results and it does help with future. So anyway, go ahead. Please fill it out and ask questions.
Is the NCAT guy still here? Who was that? Who was doing NCAT?
We had the T-TRAK modules, and then we had the
yeah, wasn't that Stuart?
Yeah, it was. I was doing the live catenary back in the 70s.
Right, because we had a member on Long Island that did NCAT. It was the only person I ever met that did it, and I was just impressed with. It wasn't very big, but just to do an oval, I think, with all of the catenary I don't know if it was bigger than that on the N-TRAK module. You know, it goes
Well,
on the back.
there was a company back in the 70s that went by the nickname Exarban, so Nebraska spelled backward, Exarban Hobbies, that was making these beautiful brass and piano wire, basically catenary poles. And then we were making our own frogs out of like 040 phosphor bronze and soldering them on, and we used like 040 phosphor bronze for all of the actual catenary wiring. So I rewired a 1976 Bachmann Metroliner so that it actually worked off of the pantograph rather than otherwise. So yeah, it's ancient history. I've been collecting up again Bachmann Metroliners, and I'm getting ready to remotor one of the powered units, gutting the old box motor out of it and putting a Kato motor into it so that it will be decent.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being
All right.
here.
Were there any other chat questions that didn't get answered? If they are, speak up now and ask them out loud.
Can Stu show his address again? Would you be able to show that?
If you look in chat, his email address is in there.
Oh, it's in there? Okay.
Yeah. It may,
All right.
you may have to scroll a bit. If anybody ends up with missing information and you wanted, you say, well, I didn't get a chance to get Tom's address or Stuart's address, just send email to ZoomTRAK@nrel.org and we'll provide the information for you. So.
Well, it looks like our hour is about up, and so we're on time. Again,
Okay.
Let's talk about next month, which will
Razor,
be May the 14th.
Razor, can I interrupt for a second?
No.
I want to mention something. Before we started, people were talking about factory air. And as we have a newsletter that we publish every other month. And what we've been doing is sending the authors a thank you card. And so we've had 2 years worth of author cards, and we're doing it again this year. Well, we suddenly discovered that I guess over the past week, somebody put their author car up on eBay and it fetched over $500. And so I would encourage you to consider writing an article for the newsletter and get yourself an author car. You don't have to necessarily put it on eBay, but we do that. And of course, anybody who gives a presentation either for ZoomTRAK will automatically become a member of NREL for a year. So we really appreciate people who make contributions to our organization. Go ahead, Razor. Sorry, I just wanted to.
That's fine. Unfortunately, that car that sold for $500 wasn't one of mine. But I look like I've got a treasure in my closet. All right, next month. Go ahead, Paul.
It's part of your estate.
Yes, yeah, yeah, right. Next month, May the 14th, right, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll have Andy Zimmerman talking about the N-scale and the NMRA. J.M. Godoria will talk about our NRail channel and have some thoughts about videos. Our vendor presentation, Andy Kaufman with N-Scale Architect will talk about his structures, and he's got some beauties. Terry will do his T-TRAK blog. And Peter, how do you pronounce that, Bruce? Is it Borchards?
I'm not sure.
I haven't met him yet, but he's out of Great Britain, and he's going to talk about his Chicago Chicago sub model railroad, which should be very interesting, and I'm personally looking forward to hearing that. So that's what we got coming up next month. Again, we always have slots for topics for the Zoom meetings. if you have some ideas and would like to put something together, we'd love you to contact us and we'll get you on the schedule so we can hear what you've got to share with the rest of us. Other than that, I hope you all have a very happy Easter tomorrow and a great weekend. There are a lot of, we talked about operating stations. Tom has an operating railroad. There are a lot of these operating stations that are coming around as COVID seems to have taken a back seat here lately. You notice that the questionnaire today talked about operations. We want to know what you think about that, and if we need to spend a little more time on operations. Those of us who are into it love it. It's a whole broadens the scope of model railroading to us, and we want to try and make sure everyone who has a chance to be aware of it. And so we're going to start probably letting you know about things that are coming up. For example, in 2 weeks from this weekend is Pro Rail up in Chicago, and also Rocky Rail is Rocky Ops is going on in the Denver area here in a couple of weeks. There's these operating stations around the country that happen all the time, where you go for a weekend and you operate 3 times and have a great time and see some fantastic railroads. And if there's interest in that, we can share that information with you in the future. So again, have a happy Easter, and we'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for letting me attend. Thank you.
You know, Razor, in all the operating sessions I've ever attended, no one ever smiles.
Well, maybe Glenn, you scare them to death.